Hello. Welcome to listeners. My name is Sue Gilman. I am the director of the Atlanta Shambhala Center, and I am here with Dr. Galen Ferguson, who has kindly agreed to spend a few minutes with me. We will talk about a class that Galen is going to teach for Atlanta. It's entitled Natural Bravery, the, what is it, Galen? The Fear and Fearlessness in the Beloved Community.
Fear
Right?
and fearlessness as a path to beloved community.
Yes, as a path to beloved community. And we're going to get into that in a minute. So, yeah, Dr. Ferguson has been teaching Buddhism for many, many, many years. And he is currently in the beautiful Schwangam Ridge in New York, which is about 2 hours north of New York City. And will be joining us on Zoom for this class, which begins September the 27th.
April.
April the 27th. How did I get to the fall? Maybe that's a foretelling of something.
Okay.
So welcome to you and thank you so much. And I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about the relationship. I'm curious about the title,
Mm-hmm.
Fear and Fearlessness as a Path to the Beloved Community.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the relationship there?
Yes, I'm curious about this myself. It's something that I've been thinking about and interested in, and people may know this phrase, beloved community. It's a phrase that Martin Luther King made famous and well known, his vision of that it was actually possible for us to have a community based on love, a kind of universal love in a way, not just the love of romantic love, but a kind of vision of a compassionate society in that way. And this time, I mean, teaching fear and fearlessness, or exploring and contemplating those, and meeting in groups to chew on that, is something that I've been a part of in many, many settings over the last, 20 years at least. And so that part was familiar, that we're working with our own fear. There's a saying in the Shambhala tradition, unless you know the nature of fear, you cannot understand fearlessness. So, and there are specific fears that we can walk through. What we'll do in the class is explore our various fears. So that, in a sense, is the first fearlessness, is being brave enough to acknowledge fear. That we do have fears. We're afraid of various things, and maybe with good reason, with good cause. There's no judgment about whether, but we do have fears, and being willing to look at our fear, explore our fear, understand our fear, experience our fear directly. This time it struck me that the purpose of that is not just personal, or so that I, have an improved relationship with my fear, that the long-term aim of that is beloved community. That's actually what that's a path to. That's what that's aiming at. The journey that we go through together is aiming at this union, you could say, of something outer and inner. And the outer part to me is there in the word community. Community means some kind of gathering of people, whether that's your neighborhood community or any kind of association. We say PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. The parents and the faculty get together, what's good for the kids. So that's a kind of association. It's a little society. A team at work is a kind of, group like that. Community, people have their church communities, religious communities, spiritual communities. It's Easter weekend coming up, and lots of Easter dinners and Passover seders or whatever. All these are forms of people being together. This word community, society. So when we think about that, we think about something that's in public, right? That you can go to. I went to the PTA meeting, or I got together with these group of folks. But beloved community, this beloved part, is something interior or inside. It's a feeling, right? And I think in King sort of promoting this vision of a beloved community that we're moving toward, that it's actually possible to move toward a more loving basis for our community, a community in which each and every one is in some sense cared for, that he was connecting the outer and the inner. And this is one of his themes, that if we just overlook our interior state, and he says if we just maximize the outer, that won't do it. But at the same time, he's not saying, oh, we just need to meditate and be contemplative. There's also a need for an outer manifestation of this lovingness and compassion and so forth. So it's a beautiful image to me of both the inner and the outer together. Cornel West, the professor and teacher, Dr. Cornel West, Professor Cornel West, has said, justice is what love looks like in public. So I love that, because it's the same sense that we're talking about love, which is often something, within the family or within an intimate relationship. But what does it look like in an outer way in terms of laws and justice and all these things, right? What does love look like in the actual world that we live in? And so in thinking about this, and I just picked up the newspaper and there was an article about there's an increase in road rage in the whole country, and in some areas worse than others. But we are talking about actually folks carrying guns more, and not just cursing at each other, but actually shooting, right? And they have an instance of, I think, Houston, where the driver of the car was okay, but his son was in the car with him, in the truck with him, and was killed. So I thought, okay, part of this is contemplating what is a unloving community or society. Like, what is the opposite of a beloved community? It's a society where we have so much road rage, so much violence, so much fear of each other, because I think it must be, when I think about road rage, I think somebody feels disrespected, that somebody cuts them off in traffic. And then they sort of, rather than just somehow absorbing it and, okay, that person's whatever, they then go after them in some way, start. So that feeling of disrespect and rage and some of the violence and anger that we're seeing, I think, is coming out of kind of inability to just be with ourselves and be with each other. So that's the other thing in terms of the timeliness of this. When the pandemic happened, we got used to not being around each other as much. Just for safety's sake, there was a kind of lockdown. And I noticed that this was like last year, once they started to lift and we were going out and they started to have sporting events, many of us had kind of forgotten how to be with each other. And the thing that really strikes me is I heard about a sporting event. It might have been a basketball game or something, but people someone took their water bottle and threw it at the referee because the referee made a call that they didn't like. And I thought, people didn't used to do that. Not that long ago, we would have known, maybe you didn't like the call and you would say, not a good call or whatever. You wouldn't throw your water bottle. They were also throwing them at players. And I thought, we forgot how to be with each other. We want to watch the game and we want our side to, sure, but you don't do something like that. So there's something about learning to be together. And once we say, okay, well, we could learn and remember how to be together, that we could make, when I say it's a path, working with our own fear and fearlessness, discovering the fearlessness of facing our fear of others, fear in situations. And we'll have exercises to go through each of these in our time together, that is actually trying to make a journey, or is making a journey to moving away from fear-based actions. I think a lot of what we see in our society that we don't like, whether it's on social media, Twitter, and just ways that people are unkind and mean to each other, all the way up to physical violence and shooting and road rage and all of that. It has to do with this inability to just be friends with ourselves and others. So that's a path. By path, I mean, you can take a step, then you can take another step. Maybe you slip sometimes. You make a mistake. It's not saying will be perfect and every day will be better than the previous day, but this is a journey that we could make. It's needed and necessary. It's something we all have to do. In a sense, I'm just saying this is work we need to do. Wherever we are in that journey, it's not a matter of who's more this way or whatever. I think it's work we all have to do. We are not done with this work of working with ourselves, working on ourselves. Meditation is one tool for learning to be with ourselves and share with others and listen to others, particularly when they're bringing up something that makes us uncomfortable or we disagree with. How to be able to still, we say, hold one's seat so that we're there. It's not that we have to agree with them necessarily, but we're somehow able to allow the space, let the space be there, and that could be the basis. That's what I'm hearing in this phrase, beloved community, that in this sense, loving kindness, compassion, and love could be the basis for the kind of world we make together, the kind of society, kind of community, kind of family. This is as personal as we want to make it, completely personal and everyday, kitchen sink level. And I think it goes all the way to we're a planetary at this point. How on this planet of this many billion folks, how are we going to be together and not, invade each other and drop bombs on each other? That I think it covers all of that potentially. So that's what interests me here, Sue. Honestly, that's how does that sound to you?
That sounds spectacular to me.
Okay.
And it makes really good sense to me. This whole notion of experiencing our fear. This is something that we're familiar with. Shambhala warriorship. That's part of what it's about, right? And so,
Right.
yeah. So, but there is this tendency that it's about me. It's about me. It's about me. And so this is so lovely that it's to opening it up to this is a path for how we be in the larger world together. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
So will you say something about like what people can expect in the class? It's going to be Zoom. You'll be in New York and people can come from wherever. But what kinds of things will happen?
Well, the basis of almost everything that we offer in our Shambhala centers is the mindfulness awareness meditation. So we'll definitely go over those instructions, which are, we often say we do that meditation, mindfulness awareness meditation, to make friends with ourselves. So in this case, it's very much making friends with our fear. So that's kind of the basis. We want to establish almost like a good ground, like, okay, we've got our the legs of the chair are on the ground. It's not rocking, it's not slippery, whatever. We've got some basis. Then on that basis, there's an exercise that involves, asking, and I may offer this to people as first that something they could just do on their own is, what do I fear? And whatever comes up, say thank you, and then ask again, what do I fear? So it's kind of like almost an inventory or a, you got some open space and we just want to let surface. And, we're not trying to solve them immediately, or is that realistic? Is it rational or that I fear that? Whatever it is, just bringing it up. And we'll do some of that in the group with each other in small groups or, people. And then there's further exercises of, in relating with each other, of just developing our capacity to listen so that we can hear someone else and maybe just mirror back to them, what I hear you saying is this. So a kind of dialogue work. Then there are other exercises that involve making some kind of gesture. When we go through the 4 fears, we sometimes say fear of oneself, fear of others, fear of open space. And I was just working with a group in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Shambhala Center, and they were kind of renaming each of these. And for this one, they said, oh, it's fear of the unknown. Like space is the something where we're just not sure. It's beyond what we already know. So I liked that. It's kind of fear of the unknown. And then the last one, we usually talk about fear of creative action. we can often get caught up in doing something. So we're not afraid of acting as such. Although for some of us, even that's a challenge, like, okay, go ahead and do it. But also there's the sense and emphasis on sort of out of that friendliness with spaciousness. We have an exercise of exploring, just feeling the space and then acting, make a gesture. Just, it's almost like starting in a very small way. And then in the rest of one's life, we could, it's like, what if I tried a creative strategy here or something new in my routine, or I've always been interested, and it's sort of not being trapped by fear. Like, oh, I better not try that. I better not. Just try it in some small way, right? Where the consequences are not going to be, even if things don't go well. So we're very much encouraging a kind of creativity. Um, our teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, said, by artful, we mean non-aggressive action. And that could be any action. It could be cooking dinner. It could be brushing one's teeth. If you do it in a way that's paying attention and you to the details and how you do it, that in itself is artful. So we talk about the art of everyday life. So in a sense, that fourth fear, the fear of acting, the fear of creativity, is the opposite of it would be fearlessness in everyday life, meaning what would it mean to show up in our activities, from washing the dishes to having a budget meeting to talking to family on the phone, whatever it is, what would it mean to enter into that with this kind of creative spirit? So there's a lot that we could explore, and it somewhat depends. I was saying to you, we spoke a few days ago, I rely a lot on what people bring to the gathering. So if people have interest and feel like, we've left certain things out that they very much think relate to this topic or in their own life it's coming up. I mean, in talking about a good society or beloved community, I think nowadays we need to place that community in relation to nature and the environment. It's just not complete to, the greatest crisis in a sense humanity has ever faced is what are we going to do about life on this planet? So I think that's part of it. Sort of, I sometimes wonder if the reason that some of us are in denial about the climate crisis is it just seems overwhelming. It's huge, and will my small recycling gesture matter here? And so that there's a sense of sort of like, oh, I don't want to think about how bad things could get in, they're saying, not that long a time, right, for our descendants. And so anyway, I think all of it, whatever people would like to bring into the conversation, I think is relevant. So there's a sort of, here's some things that could be explored, and then let's also make sure the space is open for what would people like to bring to our consideration, and we'll consider it as a group. Like, what are the challenges of being alive in 2022 in terms of fear and fearlessness and making good community? Yeah.
That sounds wonderful, and I can't wait. And we don't have to wait very long because we're starting this on April, not September, but April 27th. So Wednesday evenings, 4 Wednesdays, into I think the last one is May 18th. So yeah, so if anybody wants to register or learn more information, you can go to the Atlanta Shambhala Center website, and it's all there. You can read more about the course, and you can register and even send us a message. So thank you.
I look forward to seeing you all Wednesday, the 27th. Take good care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Thank you.